familiar with YouTube, you already know Big Flocko with the Thomas perspective. Now, you already know what time it is, coming directly from the county jail, smashing, dashing, sliding through with a whole lot of positive energy. So please hit the like, subscribe, comment, do all those things to help support your boy. Hit that bell notification for future buyer content. So, someone in the comments asked me to talk about the AZ Chicanos versus the Cali car in the early 2000s, which was a very there's a lot of interesting situations that happen with this, man, and there's probably even more details of what I'm gonna discuss, right? But this is basically the gist of it. And in the aftermath, there's a lot of things that have changed. Actually, a whole new Mexican mafia was basically almost started because of a lot of this stuff, right? And it all started at first with an individual who was a big homie from California, from Fontana. Now, rather than go ahead and speak his name, I'm just going to give you guys his initials, which is DF, okay? If you're from Fontana, and if you know the story about this beauty from AZ, or from California, excuse me, that got caught up in Arizona, then you'd understand what I'm talking about. So he caught a murder case. And, you know, there's certain rules that come from the game as far as testifying for yourself or not testifying or testifying to help someone out. And apparently he was going to testify on his behalf, right, without exposing any information, without relinquishing any information, not doing anything but safeguard himself. And apparently, from my understanding, there's another long-time beanie that's been locked up in Arizona for a long time that is from California as well. Okay, and a lot of people know his family's last name because he's a couple other brothers that are carnals from the MA as well. And he's been in Arizona for a long time. And he was also on gangland, believe it or not, and still in good standings. And he had issues with him testifying or potentially testifying. And so, you know, this was the early stages of the California AZ having a little tension because here was Arizona putting their nose in basically California's business. Okay, and during the same time period, you had, you know, the fall from Trigger and Greyhound, right, which is basically the old MA. A lot of them were more in tune with what the California MA was about, and you had this new Mexican Mafia that came out about 2001. So the new Mexican Mafia in Arizona has only been around for like 20-something years, believe it or not. And for a while, there was a lot of struggles on these yards. But in the gist of all this happening, right, it was AZ basically establishing themselves, right? You had the California car in the system, which was basically the Southsiders. And with the AZ Chicano car, right, which they represented the for their Mexican Mafia, right? But they wanted the Sureños to basically fall under their bandera. Okay, you're falling under AZ, you're here in AZ. But the Sureños were deep enough to kind of have a little bit of a resistance towards the AZ Chicanos for a minute. And it was war, you know, and of course the AZ Chicanos did have the numbers. But there's one thing that people who know about the history of this is that the Bices started to back up the Sureños at that time. So next thing you know, you had an AZ situation where you had the AZ Chicanos versus the Cali car. And the Cali car is basically Sureños, Southsiders. Because you can go to a prison yard here and you're going to have more Chicanos, AZ Chicanos, but you're going to have 20, 30 Cali cars on that yard. And then just like going into a yard in California where you may go to a place like Corcoran or, you know, Susanville or wherever it may be, Pleasant Valley, there may be only 30 Norteños on the yard, 200 Southerners. And those 30 Norteños are going to be able to establish themselves there. That's the same thing that was going on with the Southsiders. Basically, they were resisting falling under AZ rules because they already have to fucking oblige to Sureño rules in California. In fact, I've seen a filter when they were sending individuals from California to Arizona to do time, which they were doing time in the private prisons. This is before they were put out there with all the other inmates. And basically, all the Southsiders were to comply with California rules, even in Arizona. So therefore, they didn't fall under any other bandera than the Sud 1-3, which is, you know, is basically the Sureños in California. So for a long time, this was an issue. And the Bice, like I said, had the Sureños back for, you know, time being. And like I said, there's probably a little bit more details to this. But the gist of it is, the first time was when the issues happened, you know, with the MNO from Fontana and, you know, AZ sticking their nose based in California business is how some people took it. Okay, and then, you know, later on, the fall off from all that and the new Mexican Mafia coming out and basically wanting everyone to fall under their decrees or their implementations, it could cause some resistance. And the Bices did backed up the Cali car for a minute. And I think it was Cimarron, which is in Tucson. I think that was the prison where the Suneros then got into with the Bisons over there. And eventually, like I said, it was one of those situations where there was certain Southsiders that were not being allowed to walk on these yards. AZ was taking off; they were taking them off the yards left and right, and a lot of them were going to Cimarron or places where they could basically exist. But as this goes on, eventually a peace treaty came out in 2010. And the peace treaty is basically that the Cali car is allowed to be on these yards, right? Basically, they're respected and acknowledged, but it's out of respect to them being visitors in Arizona. If you're doing business and you're making money, you're going to be contributing. This is AZ Chicago's house. This is the AZMA's backyard. You're going to have to, if you're doing any type of practice or generating any type of money, you're going to kick in your percentage. Now, from my understanding, that the agreement with the Bisons was that they were allowed to watch the yards, but they have to kick in 50% of anything that they bring in. And that's, to this day, my belief is still being imposed. So anything that they're bringing in, they have to kick in the percentage. And it's just like with the Cali car. It's not that they're paying any taxes, but it's that they're paying their respect, from my understanding. And I don't think it's 50%. I think it's maybe more along the lines of probably 25%. But they're paying their dues, And someone asked a little bit about it. Like I said, I don't know too much as far as the details and information. But I do know it started basically, it's hard. We're all tribal, and whenever you're in a position of having power with manpower and established yards and influence, you don't want anybody from the outside to come in and basically rock the boat. Everybody has an ego, and it all comes down to having that ego and wanting to control everything and control everybody. So this is the same cycle that you see in California. And like I said, the thing that's always I found fascinating that I've talked to, young Chicanos from AZ is that the same storyline that the Norteños or NF has put out towards the California MA is the same concepts that some of the AZ Chicanos put when you talk about the old MA, which was influenced by the California MA, basically. So, the same storylines, the same oppression, and the same abuses are pretty much, give reasons to why the new MA was formed. It's only 23 years old, or 22, 2001, I believe. So it's basically 23, 24 years old, which before had some more influence with people in California. And somehow they're able to coexist now. Like I said, but you also had people for a minute that you had people that were loyal to, some people that were part of the old one and then the new one. And then you got those that are from California over here as well. So like I said, it's kind of, it's strange when I sit there and, take heed and take a step back and see how everything, works, how they're able to still be able to coexist this way. It's just kind of confusing a little bit, man. But it was real. If you were coming in the 2000s and you had any type of tattoos that would symbolize that you're from Califas, and there was a couple of Northerners and Norteños, from my understanding, that sometimes got caught up because they really were new to the North-South thing here in AZ, But just like in California, the North and South really took hold in the early 90s and just blew up. So all this is around the early 2000s. This is still new, the South and North and the 1-3 and how there's a AZMA and a Cali MA. All that was kind of new to a lot of people in AZ. As people were moving out here and then catching cases, next thing you know, you have these Sureños on the yard that are from out of state grouping together, pushing their own line. And, a lot of them were rejecting what was being pushed, and a lot of them felt that they wanted to have more influence on these yards, too. I've heard that from a lot of people from the AZ side, that they felt that people from California were trying to take control of these yards and put too much influence, as far as where they were from, or feeling like they were superior because they were from California, or because they were Sureños, or they were under the California, which makes sense. I've seen that. I've always tried to walk a walk to where, just because I'm from Califas doesn't mean that, I'm better than the next man. I always try to treat people equally, in the same respect, and the same way that I want to be treated, in the same way I treat others. But you got those that sometimes, I've seen it. I've talked to people from both sides when it comes to this topic. And I've seen the people from Califas a little bit at times feel a little bit like, how you say it? So the South Side I've talked to, a lot of times they have like a little bit, I'm not going to say chip on their shoulder, but they kind of don't feel like, they just have a certain different feeling, from what I understand. And, that's to each his own. I've always been part of being, an underdog when I've been in the system, and I've always fought for a cause, and I've always fought for the betterment of my people. I've never been in a position, unless it was in our backyard, where we had a stronghold, to where we were the superior group. So most places I've been, we've always been the least numbered, the underdog. So, I understand, how people who've been, part of a superior faction go from being a superior faction to now being looked at as less. And you got to mind somebody. You're going to mind somebody no matter where you're at. And you're going to respect the guidelines that they set forth. And so it was pretty bad, I heard. Man, I heard that there was a lot of bloodshed. Someone would come through and they would try to be, stick still without exposing where they were from. And they would send people to go talk to you, right? They would get information about certain hoods. So when someone's saying that was from Califas, right, they would send them over to get you and befriend you and get information and make like they were from Califas and make sure you know you're getting moved on. So we got real, man. And basically there was a peace treaty, and now it's like I said, there's still groups on these yards. There's like about 5 or 6 different Chicano groups that are on these yards that could be fighting for territory at any minute. And it's crazy because I was talking to one of the homeboys here, and he says, "You got to deal with this now, this, that, and that." And I'm like, wow, like, it's almost like the amount of groups that you're starting to hear about. It just makes you wonder, like which direction are things going to go? And like me, the good thing for me is, like I said, I'm picking up the Bible. I'm pushing that line, and like I said, anybody that's, part of my people and what I've always represented, I'm always going to have their back, but when it comes to any internal politics or anything that I experience or see, it's not my business. I'm a visitor. I don't want to know, and I don't need to know. Okay, but if it has to do with anything else that's outside of that, some race stuff kicking off, well, let's go. I'm ready to roll. Other than that, I'm staying with my Bible. And with that said, I hope this kind of explains a little bit about it. There's probably a little bit more details. And, some of these individuals are still in the system, so I didn't put their names out there. But anybody that knows the storyline knows exactly what I've been talking about. And it to be almost, like I said, there's always room for errors. This is information I've gathered from talking to people. So it's just a generalized story of how the conflict started and how it eventually ended in 2010. With that said, your boy Flaco, I'm out.